Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest installment of the Endless Celts Podcast. And as you can see, I'm joined tonight by the delightful Gav. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Happy it's Friday. It's been a long week. Starting to get cold, but got to get used to it. I'm good. Obviously, the international break is not the best thing for a Celtic football fan who's got no interest in international football. But just one more week, and then we've got Aberdeen. So looking forward to that. But I thought Celtic have obviously been doing things. They've been in the news, so it's not like we don't have anything to talk about. And it's good to see you. How are you, mate?
Ahmed, I'm fine. And you're talking about getting cold, so you getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning every night. It is so every morning. Sorry, it is so destroying. And you're out in the street, and you really want to wake, and the frost is on your car, and you just feel like going ah. But yeah, it's been a long week. Having a couple of beers with you tonight. We'll talk Celtic, and everyone in the comments as well. We've got Monty, we've got Christoph, we've got Plunge, we've got Strange Love the Doctor. Get involved, fire in what you want to talk about. It's going to be one of these kind of wing it podcasts. As Gav said, there's a few wee bits we can chat about, like the mid-season friendly against Sligo Rovers. We'll go over some of the goal scorers, some of the not so good players in that game as well. And we'll just chat about it and probably move on to some other things in the roundup. But Gav, I'm going to put you on the spot. I mean, I've heard a lot recently. I'm driving about now a lot in the job at the moment, and had Talksport on in the background, and they were talking about just mental health and speaking at people, not being afraid to talk if something's bothering them, or don't be keeping things held in. And just quite simply, what's been the highlight of your week so far?
Okay. I was wondering if I should tie it in with mental health.
Well, I'm tying it in because it's positive. It's breeding positivity, Calvin.
It probably sounds really cheesy, but I work from home, so I'm stuck up here, on this chair for hours on end, and I'm really, really fortunate to do that. But what I really enjoy is just taking a wee 5-minute break when I go downstairs, and my daughter's running about. She's coming up for 2 years in January, so I just love coming down and just picking her up and giving her a big hug, and making her laugh, and I just put her back down and I go back upstairs. So it's a good wee pick me up. So that's like a really small pleasure, but it's good for the soul,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm like yourself, and I have my kids. Spend every time with them you can and making them laugh, doing stuff. It's brilliant, and as you said, it's a good pick me up. But the reason I asked it is anyone who's struggling with anything in their personal lives or whatever, reach out to one of us in the team. There's 10 of us. You can talk to us at any time. There's numbers at the bottom here, some Martins and things of that nature. So it's okay to speak. And again, we encourage that in this podcast. Mental health is a major issue throughout the world for both men and women. But yeah, Gavin, moving on from that wee segment there, we had a mid-season friendly. Celtic give a wee token gesture to the Irish fans, and they came over to play Sligo Rovers at the showgrounds. I know you didn't catch all the game, but you've seen the Celtic goals, and obviously the main talking point to take away from it, bar a few lackadaisical performances, was Louis Palma got a hat trick, all from the same kind of area on the pitch. By the way, a couple of great assists. There was one from Ezequiel, one of the young boys who come on, fizzed it across the box for his third goal, and I think it was another young boy, McCardle, done the exact same kind of move for the second goal as well for Palma. But I mean, people are saying again, we're clutching at straws, but is this the comeback trail for Palma? Is this him going to show what he's worth? And again, it's against the League of Ireland team, no disrespect. And I think Rodgers said recently as well, there's no doubt in his technical ability, and when he's on form, he's a really good player for the team. But I think it's how he applies himself in the match that Rodgers wants to see come out of him more, in terms of tracking back, in terms of pressing, in terms of off the ball running, that type of thing, what I can gather anyway. But I mean, a hat-trick, good thing for his confidence nonetheless. But where do you think Palma is at the moment in the Celtic squad?
You know what confuses me? So I'll try to answer it as honestly as I can. But one thing that makes me wonder is when Palma first started playing for Celtic, he had a really good start. I don't think anybody has forgotten about that. He had really good stats in the first half of the season, I think it was. He looked at him a fairly impressive player despite his shortcomings. Shortcomings for me is the most obvious one, a lack of pace, and that's magnified even more whenever you play on the wing, and one of the onuses is to beat your first man. But Palma's numbers, whenever he first started with Celtic, were really, really encouraging. He was, perhaps doing it against maybe the lesser teams. But then again, let's not forget that he was, whenever we played in the Champions League games, especially at Parkhead, he was one of the focal points. It seemed like we were giving the ball to him a lot to try to make something happen. And obviously, I think he scored more than once, or sorry, he celebrated more than once, but did score. That was a really, really strong start for Palma. And I guess the point I'm making is we compare that to now, and it's like, for love or for money, he just can't beat a man. He can't get the rub of the green. The Irish game aside, that's different. The quality was different. But domestically and in Europe, he just can't get a break. And I'm just wondering, is it simply a talent thing? Is it simply a physical thing? Or is part of it a psychological thing? If he gained his confidence back, could he start making things happen again on the pitch? But the bigger issue is that he has to beat the likes of the people ahead of him. Maida on the left. I sometimes wonder, due to his shortcomings with athleticism, is he best deployed as maybe a second striker? And if that is the case, then we're not the team for him. So there is undoubted talent there. It's just, is he going to find his way at Parkhead, or will it be when he moves on to another club? You don't want to see players fail whenever they join Celtic. I know that we've got a tendency to make an early judgment on people. I think that's just natural. Whether you stick by it rigidly and you're not open-minded enough to change your mind, because what's the point in having a mind if you're not willing to change it? But Palma is stuck in a rut right now. However, the Irish game, he got 3 goals. He looked like by far the most technically accomplished player on the park. All 3 goals looked fairly kind of similar, carbon copies of each other. One finished touches. So I hope that does his confidence a world of good. I think he needs a bit of luck. But at the moment, from a selfish point of view, from Brendan Rodgers' point of view, domestically at least, we're good enough that it's not a crisis for us. It's a crisis for him, and it'll be interesting to see how this develops.
Yeah, Plunger McNugget comes in. Guys, if we play the way we did pre-Dortmund, then Palma doesn't play. He's too slow. I tend to agree, but I think Gav, you said it as well. His inability to take on the fullback and create a yard of space and whip in across. Yes, he's great at cutting in, but it's very predictable. And I thought when I watched him against Sligo Rovers that he was cutting in, but it was, again, as you said, it was different levels to the game that we're used to. He was doing it easier. The challenges were softer. The physicality from the League of Ireland team wasn't there. So he looked, as you said, technically really good in that game, and obviously he proved with the hat-trick as well. But, I mean, you mentioned there maybe changing the position, maybe switching them into maybe a shadow striker, the second striker. And again, I don't think we could accommodate that, but obviously Rio with Hate and Arnie Engels and Paulo Bernardo, who scored again tonight on international duty for the under-21s against Faroe Islands. I don't know if anyone knows, but Paulo Bernardo actually captains the Portuguese under-21s international team. Do you know? It's never been said, has it? I mean, James hasn't said it before. But like, see with, and obviously with Palma as well, his dad has been out recently defending his corner. But do you think that the writing's on the wall for him? I mean, he didn't even get called up for the Honduras national team, and he was like their savior. He was their main player for a few years when he was playing in Greek football, moving into us the first time, and he got dropped from them as well. So that's a major thing for him. Even when he wasn't playing for us at the early stages, or the latter stages of the last season, coming into this season, he was still getting into their squads. He was still featuring, and to get dropped from his national team, like, he must be thinking to himself, he needs to ship up or Rodgers ship out. That's only really solution for him.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to do some soul searching come January, because that will be the moment where, you tell your agent in the build up to it, look, it's just not working for me under Brendan Rodgers right now. We needed him at the start of the first season under Brendan Rodgers, but now that he's got the team playing the way that he wants to, and he's got additional personnel, the likes of Kuhn who came in, Palma's marginalised, and if he's getting knocked back from his national team, then yeah, he needs to make some harsh decisions, and it's probably going to end up resulting in the agent trying to manufacture moves, putting the feelers out to other clubs. I don't know if it's going to go back to his native continent. I do not know. It kind of reminds you a bit of Haksabanovic in a way, where we had that similar suggestion. Maybe he is better playing off the striker, that sort of thing. And you're almost willing to try to find some avenue to accommodate for a player of his talent. But at the same time, you can't play someone off the striker because you need to be tracking back. You still need to be helping out the team. And if you're not willing to pull your weight, then he's never going to play in any of those positions. So, yeah, January, I think, will be a difficult one. But again, if we're going to sanction him to leave, then I don't think I wouldn't want to just rely on Yang and Yang and James Forrest. We would need more. So I think we need to keep a hold of him until we bring someone in. Do you agree with that? Or do you have a different opinion about his career at Celtic, how it's going to pan out?
I mean, for me, like, I think he's done. Very early on, I called the Palma situation, and it's not me saying I told you so, but the eye test, he just never really passed it for me. And I know his stats were great, and James banged on about that a lot. And fair enough, he was one of our highest contributors, both in goals and assists, especially in the early part of last season. But he just never really had it for me. I remember when he first signed, and you hear when you get the interviews with the experts from the league he's coming from, and they talk about him and say what he's good at, and it was always about set pieces. It was always about cutting in, and something really planted in my head really early on that he must be slow, and that's before I even seen him in a Celtic shirt. And when I seen him in a Celtic shirt, I was like, "Fuck, this guy is slow." But it's true but he has talent, and he's done it in the Champions League. But he never really keeps a consistent level. He never really keeps it going for more than maybe 2 or 3 games, and that's why, in my opinion, Rodgers probably gets frustrated with him because he sees the talent in him. He probably sees what he can do every day in training. But when it comes to the big games, it's like it's hit or miss. And we can't have that at Celtic. We need more hits than misses. And just unfortunately, at the moment, Palma isn't really reaching the heights of what he should be in a Celtic top. And you mentioned something in terms of the undoubted talent, which he has. There's so much going on in this chat with Monty. I don't know what's going on, missiles, but it threw me off there. But yeah, you mentioned undoubted talent. I'm going to throw something at you. We'll move on to something, but I'll circle back to it. In your lifetime, now thinking about Haksabanovic, you're thinking about Palma here more recently. I put this on our group chat as well when I was working to see what people would say. Who would be the biggest enigma talent-wise that Celtic have signed but has never worked out? So I'll leave that with you, and we'll move on to Scott Bain, the third choice goalkeeper. When I actually seen the lineup as well, Sinisalo, I was like, where is he? Where is Sinisalo? But then I realised he's the Finland international goalkeeper as well. But Scott Bain proved again why he is so far away from it. It is actually incredible. And I know, and I appreciate you didn't see it live, but you've seen the efforts of him trying to save them goals, haven't you?
Yeah. So I was telling you just before we went live. So I think Celtic released something on Twitter of the Celtic goals, which I found quite revealing, because if they included the Bain goals, then the comments in the Twitter page would have been horrendous. So I only saw the Celtic goals, but then I managed to see on Twitter someone else posted, it was like kind of crude footage of the 2 goals for Sligo Rovers. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but the first one, it was a kind of near post effort. Bain went down, he managed to get a touch of the ball, and it somehow just squirmed under him, or he had like chocolate finger or something like that. And then the other one was a more lofted shot or header, and he managed to catch it, but then it just went behind him. So that's what I took from it. It looked horrendous. And whenever you think back to the last, am I right in saying that the last competitive game that Bain played for Celtic was the Hibs away, when he had an absolute shocker? And by the way, see, for all the misgivings about Joe Hart never had, I don't think he had a bad mistake in Europe one time when he was trying to pass it. But in terms of the ball, do you remember the England game, Paul Robinson, a couple of decades ago, I'm going back now, where the ball rolled to him and he tried to kick the ball, but there was a wee divot and the ball just rolled over his foot, it bounced over his foot, it went into the back of the net. One of those howlers. Those things never, whether it be a pitch fault, or like a howler by the goalkeeper. Joe Hart never ever did that. And Scott Bain, just every time now, he appears in the flesh. He's making these abysmal errors, and like if you're talking about writing on the wall for Palma, surely the writing was on the wall for Bain a long, long time ago, and he just seems to stick about like a bad smell in the corridors of Parkhead, and I don't know why we're not willing to shift it. I don't know what it is, what he's got on people that manages him to prolong his Celtic contract. Is it just the fact that he's Scottish? Surely there are better Scottish goalkeepers out there anyway. But the guy is a bomb scare, man. The guy is an absolute bomb scare. And I wonder how much money he's made from his time at Celtic. It's incredible. But apparently he's good in the dressing room. So that's very, very important, mate.
That gets you a contract at Celtic. I mean, you could rock up and be good in the dressing room, get 10 grand a week or whatever he's on. I actually listened to Cy Ferry, your favourite person, on Open Goal. I think he was doing, I can't remember who he was doing the podcast with. He obviously brings players in now to do the keeping the ball on the ground. No, it wasn't. I think it was the one before that. And they were talking about the best players they played with or something. And the guest at the time said Scott Bain for goalkeeper. And I was like, what? What is going on here? It was one of the seasons he was at Dundee, and apparently he was incredible, and that player played with him during that time. But I mean, it's mad to believe he was our number one for a while under Rodgers, wasn't he? I think it was Rodgers' second season he came in. He played in the Mestalla at Valencia, and he played in a few Glasgow Derby games as well. And oh my God, you look at him now. That one that you said, the lofted one, was like the one he could see to the Hibs. It was up high, and it just kind of flopped. He didn't know where the bar was. He didn't have any awareness. It was like, what's going on? But I think the reason why he's sticking around and why Celtic are happy to keep him, he's happy to be third choice. You're not going to get many professional goalkeepers that, especially at his age, that would be up for that. I mean, you look at Scott Carson at Manchester City, he's like 42, and he signed on year after year after year just to be a squad player and keep that kind of third choice keeper shirt. Kind of, I don't know, his.
You wonder about the kind of, after these disasters, these blunders in the park, you wonder about the conversation after the game that Brendan Rodgers, they'll be flying home or whatever, or on the coach home, and Brendan Rodgers turns around to Stevie Woods and says, "What's your boy doing?" And Stevie Woods is probably going to say, "He's no my boy. He's no my boy." He's probably saying, "I told you ages ago. I told you ages ago. He's still here.
Get rid."
I'm not accountable for him." It's probably going to be along those lines. So what did you expect? It's nice.
Well, he turned up. What was it? He was meant to sign for Hibs or something. He turned up the Celtic Park in a Hibs tracksuit. That just says it all when he was signing for us. Remember that at the time?
I don't know, mate. Did that actually happen?
He was due to go to Hibs, and something happened to our goalkeeping department. We went in and got that deal kind of squashed, and he came to us. But he was in a Hibs trackie when he signed for Celtic, so that was quite funny. But going back to what I asked you, have you thought about it? There's been a few shouts in the comments about people who've had talent but never made it at Celtic. Like Janino has been mentioned, Thomas Graverson, John Guidetti.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
Graverson is definitely one. I would say most recently, in terms of talent, I've heard a few people say about it that Graverson on the training park could do anything. He could put the ball anywhere. But it just didn't seem to happen for him on the pitch. I don't know if that was at all the clubs it was at, for example, like Everton, Real Madrid and Celtic. But certainly talent-wise, in most recent memory, I would say Graverson was a complete enigma. People thought that, I think he scored a hat-trick away from Parkhead in one of the domestic games, and people thought, oh, it's now clicking, he's going to kick on from there, but he just never did. I think going back to when I was a child, I have been told stories about Tony Cascarino, who was more than a competent striker for Ireland and for his teams in England. But when he came up to Celtic, it just didn't. Like, I remember when I was a child, and even my parents would be talking about it, like, the guy's just an idiot. We need to get rid of him. I can't believe we spent that money on him. And I think we ended up having to cut him loose. I don't know if that was under Macari or Liam Brady, early 90s anyway. But actually, whenever we sold him, we traded him for Tom Boyd, I think it was, at Chelsea. So Tom Boyd, who had played at Motherwell, went down to Chelsea. He ended up coming back up to Scotland and playing for his boyhood club in Celtic. So it kind of worked out well. But Tony Cascarino was another enigma. He was a talented player, but it just never got to it for Celtic. Any ones that you can think of?
Well, I mean, I can't really go as far that back in terms of Cascarino, but I was thinking maybe Graverson. Janino's a good shout. He had one good game against Rangers, didn't he? And then after that, he was, just in and out of the team, and he left. Recently, I mean, could you throw in the likes? I know we spoke about him today, and it was quite funny. But do you remember Colin Kazim Richards? He was okay, but he just never lived up to the hype. He played in Turkish football for years. He was playing in the Champions League. Came to us, he was absolutely fucking crumpet. I'm trying to think, I didn't expect you to bat that back to me. I don't know. I mean, who could you say? I mean, you're thinking about Lenny's teams. Was there anyone he really signed that didn't work out?
I think
talent-wise, Lundberg, no.
Lundberg, I think he was past it. He just never had any pace whenever he came to us. I think one would be maybe Pukki, but Pukki has explained afterwards that although he had the talent, I think he wasn't. Maybe a part of it was football IQ, game IQ. Another thing was actually working your arse off. And eventually it clicked for him in his mid-20s or whatever. And we weren't the benefactors of that. It was Norwich, So for some players, it does click for them later on in life. But Pukki certainly had talent. Can you imagine if we had the Pukki that Norwich had? He was getting plaudits in the Premier League as well, Just one of those things. Right?
He turned into Norwich legend. What do you think about Carlton Cole? Did you see his comments recently,
Right, I've not read it. I've heard that Carlton Cole mentioned Celtic and Mickey Mouse in the same sentence. I don't know. I don't know. So I've not heard the kind of the context. Is he calling the league a Mickey Mouse league, or is he calling us as a club a Mickey Mouse club? I think so. I don't really know the context, but if he is calling us a Mickey Mouse club, then I think it says more about him than what it does us. So, for example, look, as a club, you hear the term a heritage football team. We are definitely that. The Celtic heritage is only rivaled by a small number of clubs globally. In terms of the Celtic supporters clubs that we've got, whenever you go on holiday anywhere, you're likely to see a Celtic top. That's just the ilk of our fans. The kind of the passion that we have, that we represent abroad. The heritage in terms of being the first team to win the European Cup and for a non-Latin team. We've got undoubted history, and for the teams that he's played for, like Chelsea, West Ham, they don't have that. Chelsea are a manufactured team, and it's because of the steroid boost of money, from Abramovich. Carlton Cole, he had a mediocre career. For him to take that swipe at Celtic, I think he was 32 when he joined Celtic. He played 5 games, he scored 1 goal. And the 1 goal that he scored, you could actually be suspicious that he did actually score that because it was such a scrappy, ugly goal. It tells you more about him than what it does about Celtic. Nobody who knows about football would ever say that we're a Mickey Mouse club. You could call us a Mickey Mouse league, okay, and we can debate that. We can debate that till the cows come home. But to say that about Celtic, there's no foundation behind it.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of spite, because I think with these players in particular, coming from England at that age, they think they could come up to Celtic and walk the league and score multiple goals and things of that nature. And it doesn't work out like that. 9 times out of 10, they come up here and they fail, and they go back with their tail between their legs, and they come up with all sorts of excuses why it didn't happen. Always too old, and he was mentioning that Ronnie Deila wanted him to play a certain position in terms of helping Lee Griffiths in the team, but he was saying he was too slow and things like that. I mean, buckle up, mate. You're not coming up here playing for West Ham. You're playing for the champions. So, I mean, you're not going to coast through every match. And I don't know. It's one of these things that actually pissed me off when I read it. But go back to the Irish side of things, and we'll come to the roots and stuff of the club, and Brother Walford, obviously, for near enough Sligo, Sean Fallon, people of that nature. But Liam Scales, did you see his goal for Ireland?
I did not. Was it a header?
Header, yep. Looping header. It was great. Corner kick, come into the box, loop the header over the Finnish goalkeeper. Thankfully, it wasn't Sinisalo. But again, this is one of these things, right? Now, let's have a wee chat about Scales. Obviously, keeping up the Irish side of things and where he sits in the team. It sounds like a stupid question to ask because we know he's first choice, but I'm assuming when Carter Vickers comes back, Austin Trusty won't be on the right side of the fence, right? So there's a £6 million centre back, possibly not getting the game. But is it fair to say Liam Scales took his game on to a new level again from he was last season? He's scoring at international level now. He's starting for Ireland. Every time he's in the training camps and getting called up, he seems to be their main defender. So, like, where's the opportunity to put Trusty in with Carter Vickers?
I don't think Trusty's earned it yet, and that's not been harsh on him. I think he's been okay so far. But Scales has done nothing to be dropped right now. I think stats-wise, Scales hasn't improved massively, but I think just the wee small things that I have noticed, definitely I have noticed that when he gets the ball, he's been more, when he passes it, he's been a little bit more assertive this season. I'm just talking like little wee small margins, just wee small margins. I'm not saying leaps and bounds here. He does take maybe a touch too much, here and there sometimes whenever he does that. And whenever he does make the pass, he puts the other person in trouble because the other defender who's marking that Celtic teammate already sees the pass telegraphed and he's already on him. Then it goes back to Scales. So that does happen. But there have been occasions when Scales has been a wee bit smarter, a wee bit more assertive with his direction on the park. And he's had a Champions League man of the match so far. Obviously, he's had a first scoring for
two of them. One of them last season as well, didn't he?
Was that Lager Bielka?
That was Scales. He's had two of them.
Are you talking about man of the matches or goals? Sorry.
Man of the match in the Champions League twice.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right. Yes. Look, in terms of confidence, which is massive in football, he's really getting there. He's really improving. And I guess the question for us fans is, how long are we going to call him a temporary measure? Like, who is more secure, Scales or Starfelt?
Oh, I mean, who would you rather have, though? Who would you rather have?
Look, Starfelt had brilliant recovery pace, and I felt that in the box he was quite ferocious and winning headers and stuff like that. But there was that obvious aesthetic kind of problem whenever he was passing it out from the back, and he looked cumbersome. He looked like the Tin Man, where it was like awkward trying to like, pass the ball with his right foot, where it just looks so much easier if you're left-footed. So I don't know. I don't know who I would take. I think Scales has less. Well, put it this way: didn't Starfelt play at Ibrox with another Celtic defender? I can't remember. It was when Cameron Carter-Vickers was injured, and Starfelt had a howler. He had a howler, and we get beat at Ibrox. But then you've got Scales and Lager Bielka, who started at Ibrox a couple of seasons ago, or one season ago, and Scales ended up getting man of the match when the chips were down, where a lot of the pundits were picking Rangers, and Scales was the one who rose up, to acclaim. I think maybe Scales edges it because he's naturally left-footed. I don't think he makes as many mistakes as what Starfelt does. It's probably even.
Plunsman Logan makes a good point. Like, wanting to see the two £6 million American players playing together, but I think you're right, Gav. Like, and even in the comments, people are saying that Scales hasn't done anything where you can. I mean, sometimes you can see, for example, an opportunity for a player to get in. So, like when Ange was there, he would take someone out and he'd give a player an opportunity to stake a claim. But obviously, that player wasn't performing at that particular time, which is why he was took out. But Rodgers has that same opportunity, but he can't do it with Scales because he has been our best defender this season. And the plan was obviously to get an upgrade, and Trusty probably was or is meant to be the upgrade on Liam Scales, but he's not going to get that opportunity until, God forbid, Liam Scales gets an injury or he gets suspended or he has a couple of howlers in succession. And it's like, I mean, what do you do if you're Austin Trusty? Do you sit back and wait, or do you become frustrated? I mean, I've seen people saying, kind of giving him a hard time over his performances, but you have to understand as well, he's playing out of position. Scales has the left side nailed on, so he has to play right side. Against Dortmund, I have to be honest, I thought Trusty was absolutely pish poor. I thought Scales was the best defender on the night, and it would have been a
Agreed.
whole lot more if it wasn't for him and Casper Schmeichel in goals. But yeah, so is Trusty going to have to deal with being the third choice? Is that the way it's going to be looking for him?
Absolutely, yeah. However, there's a window open for him because Cameron Carter-Vickers is becoming more injury prone, which is horrible to see, because he's been our rock. But the window's open because of that, so that's why Trusty's going to get game time. But whenever that window closes and Cameron Carter-Vickers is back in, Scales gets the shot unless Trusty really, really pushes on. He really pushes on. He's going to be on a higher wage than Scales, but Scales has got the confidence because he knows that he's got the trust of the manager. Scales is so. I don't want to get carried away. He's not a world beater. Okay, he's got his limitations, obviously, but Scales is very consistent. As you said, he doesn't get injured, and he's.
It's a strange one. It is, but he is playing well. And Monty comes in. Stephen, not seen Ross or Willie on for a bit, and how's John doing it? So Ross was on Monday, I believe. This is what I've been trying to say. Look, we're running on a restricted schedule at the moment, which is why we're a bit sporadic in terms of maybe 2 or 3 podcasts a week. A lot of people have different things going on in their personal lives, which I'm not going to go into because it's up to them to say. But everything's fine, all grand. John's doing well. John's made the graphics and stuff for the podcast to give us a fresh look for this season as well. So we're all still on board, but the schedule's obviously a bit up in the air at the moment because people have different stuff going on. But all's good. And then in the end, the Celts still mean so. And we're having a few beers tonight. But yeah, again, I do agree with you on the Scales subject as well. And then Monty, what about this for a shout? Would you put this CCV, Trusty and Scales as a back three? Maybe
Well,
could that be in Europe? I don't know, but
yeah. So the question would be to what purpose? Does it make us a better team in Europe? I don't know. A lot of people don't like the kind of the 3-5-2. So what we're going to do? AJ is a wing back. Yeah, he could probably do that. Taylor as a left wing back. I don't know.
I would put Maeda as left wing back.
Yeah, well, it's a shout. But does that mean that say the right full back of the opposition, is he under less pressure because Maeda has both defensive and offensive duties? It does it to an extent anyway. He helps out, but if Maeda's not able to cover at left wing back, then that puts probably less pressure. I think domestically would be doing ourselves a disservice if we played a 3-5-2 formation. But understand it, like at the moment things are not going wrong. It's just we get humbled by Dortmund, and we haven't cracked Europe. It might take a long time.
What did you make of? I know we're going off the tangent, but it's Friday. What did you make of Roger's comments about not changing in terms of how we play?
Well, didn't he say something along the lines of, "Well, what do you expect me to do? Do you expect me to make them park the bus?" And he was saying that's not the philosophy. It's we'll still get beat probably, and you're just hoping for a bit of luck. I think that Rodgers was being disingenuous with his comments, and that it was actually quite patronising to the fans. Now, don't get me wrong, the players didn't perform. Okay, some of the simplest things, it was just not happening for them. Passing, helping out your teammates, covering for each other. They were not doing the basics. But Rodgers takes, for me, the majority of the criticism for that performance. So I think his comments were a wee bit emotional, probably, whenever you're under the cosh. Sometimes it's a human reaction to kind of go on the offense, and that's what he did. But I think in hindsight, if he was being honest with himself, then he probably know that it was a poor comment to make. Rodgers shat the bed with the tactics. If you think about it, Leicester won the FA Cup. Okay, I forget who it was against. Was it against Chelsea? Was it against Man City? I think it was like 1-0. A brilliant Tielemans effort, long range strike. But they did that by, being cute and being intelligent and pragmatic. It wasn't about parking the bus. It was just about being more compact. And we could have tried that, but the things that we were witnessing in that Dortmund game were flabbergasting. Like one simple pass was breaking through the lines, and like you had like 3-on-2s and stuff like that. counter attacks. It was ridiculous. I think Rodgers saw the recent performances from Borussia Dortmund and domestically, and thought that we were going to face Dortmund and that type of performance. He was hoping for the worst possible Dortmund, but you need to prepare for the best. And it get found out. It get found out, and the worrying thing is we're going to be playing Atalanta, and we need to think about what we're going to do here. Oh, sorry, Atalanta, not Atlanta, Atalanta. But we need to be cute about. We need to think about what we're going to do. What have we actually learned anything?
Yeah, and that's the thing. See, this whole you have to learn, and we're going to learn. And this has happened. I mean, under Rodgers a few times, PSG, flipping Barcelona. So I mean, last year was Atletico Madrid, and you know, it's like it's a constant cycle. This learning push that it keeps getting pedaled really grinds my gears. Like because, like you said, it's not about parking the bus. It's about being more tactically aware and cute when you have the ball. Instead of trying to play intricate passing and trying to break out of a press, get it up the pitch, play off second balls, be rough, get into them, get into their faces when we're defending, stay compact, narrow the distances. Because when you're watching that Dortmund game, and we are going to come back to the Sligo Rovers game, don't worry, there's a few other issues I want to talk about. But when you think back to it, I mean, as you said, one pass turned our midfield, and there was attack against defence, and it could have been 9, 10, 11. It was, in my opinion, it was borderline embarrassing at times. I mean, Kalmak, he was left to fend for himself. I mean, Engels was non-existent. Paulo Bernardo had as you said, the whole team had a terrible game. But I think the tactics do play a major role in that, Gav, because if we're going to go to Atalanta and play the exact same way, the writing's on the wall. They're a very, very shrewd team. They won the Europa League last season. They're unbelievable at home. They've got a great record. And if we're going to go there and be like, well, we'll play the same free-flowing football, it's like, come on, look, we're not asking you to sacrifice and sit in the edge of the edge of the box all game. That's not what we're saying. But defend tighter, be a tighter unit. The space in between attack, midfield, and defence was crazy in that Dortmund game.
I know. And the frustrating thing was, if I'm to lay any blame at the feet of Callum McGregor, who individually he didn't have a good game at all. I thought he was very, very poor, Callum McGregor. But the other thing is see, even if the coach is having a pure mad one, you know, if he's not giving you any proper instruction, even after after 15 minutes. What were we, 2-1 down after 50 minutes, perhaps, I don't know. But whenever you're like, oh my god, like the game plan is not coming to fruition, then you change it. So if the coach is not doing that, then you want your long-serving players who are very, very experienced to have conversations with people, with the teammates, and says, we need to do something about this. If the coach is just sitting back and just watching this carnage unfold, then the players need to be acting accordingly as well. Yeah, so it was horrible. It was horrible to watch. And Dortmund aren't even the best Bundesliga team. They're not. They're really not. Stuttgart tore them to shreds. And one of the Bundesliga games earlier on this season tore them to shreds. So yeah, Atlanta, a different type of team, but very, very competent. The fact that they could beat Bayer Leverkusen, who went unbeaten the entire season, and get humbled 3-0 in a European Cup competition, that says it all. So different type of team, different type of beast, but undoubted quality. They're quite a physical team as well, and Italians, with the nature of their direct build-up play, then we can't just play into their arms into the way that they want us. And Ademola Lookman might tear us to shreds. Didn't happen from. Do you remember we were actually interested in getting Lookman? I think it was he playing for Anderlecht, and then he went to Everton. I think that we wanted him at that moment, but he went to Everton, didn't work out, and then eventually he's firing in all cylinders. He's doing really, really well. Atlanta are a good team. Atalanta, I keep saying Atlanta, fucking hell. Aye.
No, look, I get what you're saying. It's strange enough the doctor's dreading it, and I think we all are at this precise moment in time. I think that the stuffing's been knocked out of us in terms of European football after that result, but I'm sure we'll be buzzing the week of the game. But back to the Sligo Rovers game. Couple of the young boys, were playing, and I'm a big advocate for the youth at Celtic Football Club to get a chance and opportunity and to showcase their skills. And it was, let's say, eye-opening to say the least. I thought them. I know they play in the Lowland League, and look, it's a crap standard, but it's not even up to League of Ireland standard. I thought they couldn't. The young players like Turley, like Jude Bonner, who else was on the pitch? There's a few others. A striker up front, can't remember his name, but he barely got a touch of the ball, and a few other kids were playing. Couldn't deal with the physicality, couldn't deal with the pace of the game, couldn't deal with the quick thinking nature that you have to have at them top level games. And to me, that was concerning. And no disrespect to the Sligo Rovers, but I'm expecting a young kid or a couple of them to come in and really impress and show why they should be in around the first team. But there was none of it. And I thought it was really poor from all of them. And I mean, the Celtic youth team's been a constant talking point for everyone, really, in terms of where's the next product coming through and why doesn't youth players get an opportunity? We see players leave. Ben Doak was in the press recently saying he thought it was the right time to train at the elite level going to Liverpool. That fella's head is cooked. But yeah, I mean, where do you stand on the Celtic youth team and the standards? It doesn't seem to me that there was anyone that can make the grade in terms of stepping up.
Yeah, well, we all know the merits of the Reserve League, and for reasons that are unknown to me, the Reserve League is no more. I heard people say that there's no way that the Reserve League could come back from a practical point of view. So if we put that to the side and we face with what we're left with, then what is the pathway? Unless like Darren O'Day's the pathway manager, isn't he, from the B team to the A team? That's going to be one hell of a journey. That'd be like Abe's Odyssey. Try and work your way up to the team from those depths. So I think it's clear to see that the Highland League or whatever it is, the Lowland League, it's nowhere near the level needed to be to actually push our youth team players on. I think that the Irish League itself is a far more superior league to what our young boys are playing in, just because you're playing against grown men and some of them are actually not bad footballers as well. I don't know the answer. I heard Aidan McGeady and Chris Boyd talking about it at the last televised game, Celtic televised game at Sky Sports, and he said there's a pathway if you're good enough. But some people need breaks along the way. Like Kieran Tierney had his break where he wasn't even the best in his position at his age group at Celtic, but for some reason or another, he just got thrown into the deep end in a training session and he caught the manager's eye. Some people, I know that you can say cream always rises to the crop, and what's good for you, you'll get it in the end. But those are just sound bites. You know, some people do need fortune along the way, the right people to meet in life, to direct them in their career, to make the right decisions. And some people give up whenever you get your first knockback, and they just think that maybe football isn't for them. I don't know. There's going to be people who are going to get lost through the cracks in terms of talent, but there will be some people who come through. But it's not a conveyor belt. It's not an exact science. You'll go through cycles. If you look at even Barcelona, one of the best youth academies in the world, they had people like Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets and Pedro and Messi, of course. But then how many great talents have they had since then? People thought that it'd be a continuous cycle. It doesn't always work like that. It comes through in drips and drabs. And right now we're having a bit of a drought. Who was it, the boy that we had? Probably one of the most eye-catching players that we had in the B team a couple of years back under Ange. Was it Owen Moffat? Ginger-haired.
Owen Moffat, yeah.
And he made the decision to leave Celtic. I don't know who he's playing for now. Probably one of the divisions below in Scotland, but he made that decision because he probably knew that there is no pathway for him, and maybe he wasn't good enough. Like clearly, he probably wasn't good enough to make it to the Celtic first team. But there's just not many people right now. We've got a fullback called Turley, I think it is. Whether he'll make the grade, we do not know. But it's bleak. It's difficult, and you get the academies in England who are just shoring up all the talent in the UK, and it's not even for the purpose of playing in the first team. It's about boosting your assets. Bring the best talent from Scotland into a Liverpool academy or a Chelsea academy. Even if you know that they're not going to make the grade at those top clubs, they'll get better. by better coaching, they'll eventually progress, they'll fill out, and then they'll go out on loan, and then there'll be a transfer value attached to them, and then they'll make a profit on that. That's a transfer model in itself, It's ugly. It's ugly. I would rather they were left to their own devices in Scotland and like that. But that's what we're up against. That's the competition. It's a really, really difficult thing, and I'm struggling to put positivity on it. I can't.
For me, a lot of it, Gav, is to do with coaching, academy setups, and again, without getting into it, but our B team coaches are McManus and Johnny Hayes. It's like, what are they going to teach the young kids in terms of technical ability and things like that? Sometimes I think you've got to bite the bullet, bring in the best coaching team you can. Who cares if they're not Scottish? Who cares if they don't have an affiliation with Celtic? If you want the best young kids, you want the best training academy, you bring in the best coaches to what's available and what you can afford within the remit of the club. And again, it goes back to the jobs for Bhoys and that pathway manager for Darren O'Day. It's just to give him a job and keep him in a job. And I don't know, it's abysmal from my point of view. We've lost so many youth players throughout the years, and I mean, it's actually shambolic. But the standard coming through at the moment, I mean, there's a wee fella come on, Liam Boateng, I believe. He's Australian. He played right back in the second half. Oh, he couldn't move. He was slow as chips. It was, Franny Turley is an attacking midfielder, by the way. He's not a fullback, but I knew what you were on about. Jude Bonner, I felt so sorry for him. Every time he turned in the midfield, he was getting the ball took off him. He was getting flattened. He was just getting pushed around. And it was just like, what can you do? These kids aren't ready to make the step up. And it's like, when will they be ready?
Do you think that game will have done anything for them?
I mean, there was a wee fella, McCardle, come on, done a good assist. He played okay for 25 minutes. Maybe a wee bit of a confidence injection for likes of him, but the rest of them, to be honest, Gav, I don't know. I don't know. I can't see anyone making the step up, and I'm a big voice for the youth. I love youth product coming through to the first team. It gets me excited seeing people getting opportunities, but none of them really. When someone catches your attention, you're like, fuck, there could be a player there. There could be someone for the future. Even Franny Turley, who played well in pre-season, he looked miles off it. He looked absolutely miles off it. And again, that could be down to maybe he's not playing with the first team. And you look better with better players around you. Obviously, you can pick and choose who you want in different positions if you have that luxury. But yeah, it was just, none of them really impressed me, to be fair. But interestingly enough, we'll end the Irish segment on this. We've got another interesting topic coming up. I got reminded of it in the comments. Give me your Celtic Irish five-a-side team.
Okay. I will do that right now. But can I just say how inspiring it was, though, the fact that Celtic came to Ireland and managed to put on a game in front of all those young Irish football fans, how inspiring it was for them that they got to see Celtic, and they'll remember years to come. Yeah, they'll never forget that day. Okay, well, Pat Bonner and goals, of course. Right. Okay.
Did you? By the way, before you, do you believe that story? Do you think he made that up?
No. Well, the fact that see, whenever you're telling a lie and you try to sound unsure about it, but you get the exact number, the exact date, the exact month, like, fuck off, Brendan. Nah. He totally researched that. He researched that before, and then he tried to sound hesitant whenever he was saying it. Like, it's the date, the 3rd of January, 1978. Aye. Well, don't get me wrong. Like, he's got his quirks. He's got his quirks. There's no getting away from that. I think it's quite harmless. As David Brent-isms. Quite funny. By the way, the funniest thing I've ever heard Brendan Rodgers say, whenever somebody asked him in an interview, who was your most inspirational figure in life, and he said it was himself.
No, he didn't. Did he say that? No, he didn't.
I guarantee, if you Google Brendan Rodgers quotes, that will be amongst it. You're doing it right now, aren't you?
I'm checking the name of this person. I'm going to talk about it after this. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Right, okay, so I'm still thinking, so five aside. So I think up front, it would have to be Tommy Coyne, who played for Ireland in the 1994 World Cup. I don't care what you say, Roy Keane. Oh, fuck. You've got two Keanes. Roy Keane. Well, you've got two Keanes. So would Robbie Keane go in ahead of Tommy Coyne? Well, who else have we got? We've got Aidan McGeady. Aye, McGeady has to be there. Stokes is not going in. He's on probation. He doesn't get in the team. So, man, what can you say?
What a fall in career, for Anthony Stokes. Absolutely incredible.
It started off with sticking the head on an Elvis impersonator, and now it's came to this. Such is life. Such is life. Right. Okay. So I've got Paddy Bonar. I've got Roy Keane. I've got Aidan McGeady. I've got Tommy Coyne, but I could easily swap out Tommy Coyne for Robbie Keane.
Are you not going for a structure here? You're just going just all out.
Well, I've got a goalkeeper. I've got a defensive midfielder. I do need a defender. So what centre backs played?
Skills.
It's not a bad shout. It's not a bad shout. We have to go for. We have to go for skills.
I'm going to get this totally wrong, and probably I'm not even going to say it because I know he didn't play for Celtic, but it's all right. Paul McGrath, no? Did he play for Celtic? No.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but no, I never. He plays for like Aston Villa, Man U.
Yeah.
I think he retired fairly early as well. I can't think of any particular centre backs. What about? No, he played for the north of Ireland, didn't he? Charlie Tully.
Who?
Charlie Tully. He played for the north, didn't he? Did he?
No idea.
Did Patsy Gallagher play for? I don't need Patsy
No,
Gallagher.
Gav, fuck off, Gav. It has to be someone, people you've seen. You can't really run about people in the 60s and that. Come on, you.
Patsy Gallagher was back before the 60s. He was like, I don't know, 1930 or something. Pat Bonar, Roy Keane, Aidan McGeady, Scales.
Oh!
Yes, Mick McCarthy. I never really got to see Mick McCarthy play. I'm going to go for Scales, and I'm going to go for Robbie Keane. So I've got the two Keanes. I've got McGeady, I've got Scales, and I've got Bonar. That's my five.
That's a good team, to be fair, for Larry's players. What's this? Ernie from Sesame Street hosting. Ernie? Who's Ernie?
Don't know, man.
I have no idea what that is. Fair enough. Right. Next topic. Moving on from that. Quite interesting. Celtic have appointed, are going to appoint a football doctor to oversee the change of the operations and change of the way the structure is within the Celtic Football Club.
Yes.
And it's Paul Tisdale, former Exeter City manager for 10 plus years, guided them to promotions there to get up to the Championship. He's consulted teams like Crystal Palace. He's consulted the teams like Fulham, Newcastle, on how to set up their clubs. This, to me, is again, it just screams of someone like Nicky Hammond again, so bringing in someone short term to find people for long term, and it doesn't really necessarily work out. Look, I'm just being cynical here, obviously, but the Times have tried this in the past with Lee Congreton and Nick Hammond, and there's been nothing that's really came of it. Gordon Strachan even tried it for a while, and that review magically disappeared. But yeah, where are you sitting on Paul Tisdale coming in as the football doctor to oversee everything at Celtic? Okay,
so this is what I've heard. Celtic 67 podcast said that they are of the understanding that he's going to come in as to replace Mark Lawwell. So he's going to be the chief recruitment guy. Okay, so that's going to be his focus. I was listening to Alan Morrison of the Celtic Underground podcast, who featured on Axom earlier on today, I think it was, and he was quite interested. He was quite intrigued about what this guy Tisdale can offer. He said that he actually stayed as a manager of Exeter for about 9-10 years, and that's a strange one. They're one of the kind of the lowest in terms of financial might, lowest teams in the English pyramid, and one of the things he did when he came in, he fired all the scouts because they spent so much time trying to identify talents who they could never possibly attain, and he ended up doing a lot of it himself, and he brought in some scouts who kind of lived in the area, who were local, who really wanted the job, and who were focused on his kind of criteria that he was setting for the team. And I guess that the main focus that was outlined by Alan Morrison for Tisdale and his time at Exeter was the main kind of achievement was not like it was about breaking even. It was earning enough money to stay afloat, that people got their wages paid on time, that the club didn't go into administration, and he managed to kind of change the club, revolutionise the club in a certain way that they became very stable and they were able to kind of get better. I think he managed to get them very, very close to promotion to the Championship, which is no mean feat considering where they started from. The other thing I've heard about him is that his actual character he's a very, very strong personality. He's got a lot of confidence, and he's going to be like a Marmite character. You're either going to love him or you're going to hate him. One thing that I'm fearful of is that outsiders don't seem to fare well in the corridors of Parkhead. We seem to bring in people that we know, and we repeat that process. There's obviously the culture of nepotism as well. So this outsider who's going to come in, who's going to be brimming with confidence, might well rub people up the wrong way. This vacancy has been here for quite a while now, for at least 12 months, hasn't it? And we've not acted upon it. So you're wondering, we were obviously slow in coming forward with this, and identifying someone. Is it laziness? Is it because we don't value the position very much, because we think that we're operating well enough without some new influence in the club? But we've obviously brought this guy in. Apparently, he has been at Parkhead in recent weeks. Even at the Euros, I think he said that he was for when England were in the final at the Euros, he was actually at Parkhead doing some sort of thing. So I think there has been communication, there has been dealings. We've obviously announced it now. But I think, like, if you think about Dom Mackay, people were very, very thinking of a bright new future with Celtic. When he came in, he spoke the right thing. He had the corporate talk. But then all of a sudden, he was out in his arse, and we never really got an explanation. I don't want that to be the case with this new guy. I would like to give him time. I totally understand your cynicism, being sceptical about the merits of this appointment. Let's wait and see. He calls himself a football doctor, which again is straight out the book of like Brendan Rodgers in terms of that Brentism. But I think maybe you need to be full of yourself to make it at that level in football. If you're not going to be a manager, you're not going to be a player. So he's full of confidence, and let's just see what he does. He calls himself a football doctor. He dresses very, very fashionably, and he says he does that because he wants to show his confidence, and he wants to make that confidence infectious, which is just cringe patter. I can do without that. But look, if this is a guy who really backs himself, it sounds a bit like the football director version of Michael Beale, almost. But let's not hope that is the case. Let's hope that he's given the time, he can actually make relationships within Celtic, and he can benefit us. If not, we've got nothing to lose. It'll be out in his arse, and we can move on. Maybe it's not a position that we really need filled if it doesn't work out for him. There'll be another void for another couple of years. But I am quietly optimistic about this. I just don't know how he's going to work with the hierarchy at Parkhead, with the board of directors, with Peter Lawwell and stuff like that. We'll find out. I was told that you should watch one of his interviews on YouTube. So if you type in his name, it might come up. Apparently, it's really engaging. It's very, very funny. He's just a really charismatic guy. So it could be a love him or loathe him sort of thing. But we'll find out. But again, you're quite pessimistic. Is that the case? Is it because of his character? Is it because of the actual position that you think it's not really necessary for the culture of Celtic?
I think for me that it's not about the position. The position needs filled. There's multiple positions within the football club that need filled, and what I understood at this appointment, he was going to oversee all that. But like, I think you suggested there he's maybe coming in as the chief scout to replace Mark Lawwell and oversee the scouting operations. And the reason why I'm skeptical is we've seen the big hoo-ha when we got Nick Hammond in. He was the guru and Lee Congreton and all that shit, and it never really panned out. And usually, maybe 6 or 7 months later, after these appointments, whatever manager it was at the time left, I think Lee Congreton came in and Rogers was away like 4 or 5 months later. So let's hope that's not and again it's not, but it's just funny because that's what's happened previously. But I don't know. It doesn't really fill me with anything. I mean, he looks charismatic. His fashion is out there, isn't he? He's been obviously his fashion is a big talking point from what I can tell. I know he's very big in analytics and data and analysis of different things, and his playing style is quite similar to Rodgers. So hopefully that can synchronise when the players are being scouted, and we can maybe do better in that department. But it's a wait, like you said, Gav, it's a wait and see game because we don't know how it's going to pan out, and it's good to get him in before the start of the January transfer window. Gives him time to prepare, and if there's any changes that's needed quite quickly, then we can do that in the scouting department as well. But yeah, is he the best candidate we could have got? We'll never know that because we don't know who's been interviewed for these positions. Apparently, me and you, Ernie and Bert, by the way, according to the comments for the podcast night. So, well, I said, hey, I have no idea. I've never read Sesame Street, but I know who the characters are. I would have done the voice back, but I don't know. Can you do Kermit the Frog?
No, but you know who I did like? Marley and Marley. Do you remember the Muppets Christmas Carol? Like it was
never watched it.
One of the few Christmas movies that I actually I can watch. You know, I hate Christmas movies, but I can watch the Muppets Christmas Carol, and they get Marley and Marley, and they've got a funny wee song. Yeah, I think they're from Sesame Street. I'm pretty sure. At least we're not getting called Big Bird or something like that. Anyway, Stephen, I had actually prepared just as a wee kind of.
Save you say a fucking quiz. Save you say a quiz.
No, not a quiz. Not a quiz. Well, just roughly at the hour mark.
2 seconds before you carry on. I'm gonna ask you something. My wee brother, Danny 1888, asked the question earlier on in the comments. Just a quick one. What former Celtic player would you like to see in a Celtic shirt again, if you could pick one?
Okay, apart from Henrik Larsson, because that's just the obvious one, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess another obvious one would be like Virgil van Dijk. Imagine him playing with Cameron Cutler-Vickers. That would be an easy decision to take Scales out to put in Virgil van Dijk. But let's think of something kind of from left field. A former Celtic player who I would love to see back, like who's obviously retired, I'm sure. Let's go for Paul McStay. I guess that's a cliched one as well. Paul McStay, isn't it? I should try and do better.
Henri Camara.
Henri Camara. Oh. See, at the time when we went for Henri Camara, so I think that the option was to pay, was it 3 million for a 1-year loan. I think the alternative was to buy Robbie Earnshaw permanent for about 1.5 million. Now, Robbie Earnshaw, if you've ever done like football trivia, is one of those guys I think he's scored in every division. You know, he's one of those guys who's scored in practically every division, every cup competition, apart from the World Cup. But like, club wise, anyway, I thought that was a horrible decision. Robbie Earnshaw was a brilliant domestic footballer for like championship level, and he was okay. Kind of like a Dwight Gale type player.
Exactly who I was going to say. There, well done. That's class.
Nice. Great minds think alike. It was just a brilliant player. Had a great work ethic, had an eye for goal, and to get him for such a cheap price tag when he was like in the kind of prime of his career, and that was Mark O'Neill who made the choice, and he went for the eye-catching Henri Camara because I think he was doing okay for Wigan at the time or something like that. It was just a bad decision. And I think Martin O'Neill, that was maybe one thing that he was kind of guilty of. He would go on players' reputations rather than, looking further afield. But anyway, Henri Camara. He was a no bad player. He was a very athletic player. Was there anything else before I...
No, you crack on.
Okay. So this was going to be the kind of the winner stays on in terms of the best defender in your opinion for Celtic, best centre backs. Okay, I've got a long list, as long as your arm, so this will kill a good 10-15 minutes perhaps. So we're going to try and do it quick fire. So we'll start off. I'm going to move a couple of names here. Okay, right. See, John Hughes, was he before your time? John Hughes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to start off with him, but we will start off with Jozo Simunovic. So Simunovic or Kelvin Wilson?
Calvin Wilson.
I thought you'd frozen there. Right, Kelvin Wilson or Stephen Presley?
Calvin Wilson.
Kelvin Wilson or Douay?
Wilson.
Okay. Kelvin Wilson or Gary Caldwell?
Gary Caldwell.
Gary Caldwell or Yus Valharen?
Valharen.
Okay, here's a matchup. Yus Valharen or Christopher Julian?
Valharen, all day.
That is the right answer. Yus Valharen or Ulrich Lawson?
Oh, I didn't mind Big Ulrich, to be fair. I thought he was quite solid when he featured. He wasn't really a first choice, but use Valharen.
Valharen or Daniel Mastorovic?
Valharen.
Valharen or Mark Reaper?
Again, because I can't remember Mark Reaper, I have to say Valharen. Do I think Hughes Valharen's a very underrated player when it comes to Celtic?
Yeah, I think if he never played alongside the likes of Mjällby and Bobo Balde, who had like really defining characteristics. Bobo, the destroyer, Mjällby, the good-looking Swedish player, with international acclaim. Valharen, I think, was Valharen not the first signing under Martin O'Neill? Or am I talking shite?
I was going to say it's not Chris Sutton. Yeah, it was Chris Sutton. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm wrong. Okay, so Yus Valharen or Stephen McManus?
Valharen.
Valharen or Bobo Balde?
Just what we talked about there. This is what I mean. I loved Bobo Balde. I absolutely adored him. I remember that time Michael Owen was a fire for Liverpool, and they were all saying that yeah, that's right, smell the glove. They were all saying about Michael Owen was going to torture Bobo Balde, but Balde had him in his back pocket. And then, do you remember that? I think Michael Owen only ever got away from him once, and he nutmegged him in that game, and that was it. The only time he ever got away from Balde.
Danny Murphy on TalkSport recently was talking about Balde, and he said it was the Liverpool and Celtic clash at Parkhead, and Murphy managed to piss off Balde, and then in the tunnel, Balde was going for him, but it was Emil Heskey who was more than a match for Balde. That is what Danny Murphy had said. But otherwise, Danny Murphy said he would have been killed if he never had Emil Heskey to save him there. So we've got Valharen or Balde. Who are you going for?
Balde. Fuck.
Balde. Okay. Balde or Carol Starfelt?
Balde.
Balde or Alan Stubbs?
Balde.
Balde or Stanislav Vargas?
Who?
Varga?
You mean Varga? Varga? Yeah. Balde.
Okay, Balde or Mjällby?
Balde.
Okay. Balde or easy one, Boyata?
I like Boyata, but Balde.
Okay, Balde or Christopher Ayer?
Oh, you be fuckpot, you dick.
Really?
Really? I love that. I love Ayer, man. Ayer is such a great player. Remember that goal he scored, and he was right back against Aberdeen at Batodry. He just ran the whole length of the pitch and just into the roof of the net. But I have to go Balde.
Okay. Right, here's one for you. This will give you some consternation. Baldy or Cameron Carter-Vickers?
Carter Vickers.
Okay. Does everyone agree with Stephen so far? We're at Cameron Carter-Vickers right now, after the likes of the legendary back three under Martin O'Neill. Okay, so Cameron Carter-Vickers, moving on.
You love doing that to me, don't you? You're throwing out the fishing hook for people to grab onto now.
I'm just engaging. With the lifeblood of this podcast. Okay, so Cameron Carter-Vickers, Ramon Vega. Do you remember Ramon Vega? We had him on loan from Tottenham.
No, mate. So I have to go with Carter Vickers.
Okay, here's a tough one. Cameron Carter-Vickers or Darren O'Day, Cup final hero.
The pathway manager. Carter Vickers.
Okay, Cameron Carter-Vickers or Glenn Loovens.
Carter Vickers.
Cameron Carter-Vickers or Jos Højveld.
Jesus, these names. That big Hoyfeld. Jesus. Carter Vickers.
Okay, Vickers or Effie Ambrose.
Vickers. If Effie Ambrose had a tactical head on him, he would have been a class defender. Like,
or a great gymnast. One of the two.
Yeah.
Cameron Carter-Vickers or Charlie Mulgrew.
Vickers. Yeah.
Vickers or Zviatchenko.
Oh, that's actually tough. Sviatchenko, I thought he was really, really good. Sviatchenko, he was good. He could move, he could shift. He was a good passer. He was a threat in both boxes. I thought he was very physical, even though he's like 5'8" or 5'9", whatever. But it has to be Carter Vickers. But you have to appreciate that Sviatchenko was a good player.
Vickers or Stephen Welsh? I know. Yeah, okay. Moving on. I didn't actually include Denier in this one. Cameron Carter-Vickers or Shane Duffy?
Oh my God, Carter Vickers. Fuck.
Okay. Vickers or Moritz Jens?
Vickers, obviously, but Jens was good.
And to the people in the comments, would anybody have spent the money on Jens if it was 6 million or something? For example, would you rather Jens over Trusty right now, who we spent 6 million on as well? Was he an underappreciated player? Anyway, Cameron Carter-Vickers or Liam Scales?
Vickers.
And finally, Cameron Carter-Vickers or Virgil van Dijk?
Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah.
Yep.
People say that for his as a player, Vickers is head and shoulders above Vickers. Sorry, Van Dijk is head and shoulders above Vickers. But judging him on his time in a Celtic top, Vickers was a superior player. Do you think that's a bit of kind of short-sightedness? Do we forget how good Van Dijk was?
I think what we think. Go ahead.
The only other thing was, like, if you talk about your prized assets, why isn't it that somebody's come in with a big offer for Cameron Carter-Vickers?
I think Cameron Carter-Vickers has history in England of it not really working out at the top level. I know he went to Bournemouth and he had a really good season when I got promoted from the Championship, and I think he chose to come to Celtic. But he's had previous, and I think that probably puts off the big bids coming from English football. In terms of, as you're saying, he is one of our prized assets, but if he's going to leave, I think it'll be like the La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A. I don't think he'll be back in England again for a very big fee. The reason why I said Carter Vickers, I only purely based them on what I've seen in the Celtic shirt. If you're comparing the two of them career-wise, it's Virgil van Dijk all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. But in a Celtic shirt, I think Vickers has been incredible. He came in under Postecoglou. He formed a cracking partnership with Starfelt. Will never beat defence domestically. Then he's formed another good partnership with Liam Scales. So, and you know what I always notice, and a good gauge of it is as well, when he comes back into the back four, you automatically feel more confident. You feel more assured. You feel more safe that you're going to win the game. You're going to be tight at the back, and that's all really down to Vickers. Do you know what I mean? And Graham comes in at the bottom there in the comments. He's a bit injury prone. That's probably the one issue that I would have with him at this precise moment in time. He seems to get injured always at the start of the season, come up to Christmas, and he misses out in Champions League football and things of that nature. But yeah, I don't know. But I mean, would you say Van Dijk was better in his time at Celtic than Vickers, Gav?
Would it be fair to say that the competition that Vickers has faced is tougher than the competition that Virgil van Dijk at Celtic faced? I don't think we played in the Champions League all that often, or at all. Did Van Dijk play in the Champions League for Celtic? So it's easier to judge it whenever you perform against the highest level, how you do against Rangers, how you do against the top teams in Europe. Domestically, Vickers is such a rock, but Van Dijk had that athleticism, and you knew that he was going to get better and better and better. I don't, despite the comments, I think it's kind of overwhelmingly in favour of Kamikata Vickers. For me, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think it's just down to personal preference. And I guess the toss of a coin. I would maybe take Van Dijk because of his recovery pace, and he was just a monster going forward and going back. I would maybe take Van Dijk, but just by a ball here, really.
Yeah, it's what would Ross say? It's all conjecture, isn't it? It's all subjective to what you like and what you prefer. And obviously, Van Dijk's went on to win Champions League and English Premier League and things of that nature. So you can't compare them that way. But I'm just basing it purely off Celtic and their time in the Celtic shirt. But obviously, we're not in action this weekend, but we do have a big game coming up, Gav, against Aberdeen, the top of the table clash. Before we come on to like Aberdeen and if they're genuine title contenders and things of that nature, what did you think of Celtic knocking back 75,000 from Premier Sports to this top of the table clash? What a pathetic offer that Premier Sports had the cheek to offer Celtic to that game. I think it's disgraceful. I think Celtic are right to do it. Don't get me wrong, would I have loved it to be on TV? Of course. But 75 fucking thousand quid. Are you joking me? Nah.
Yeah, I think it was a fixed price. The maximum. So Premier Sports had the option to purchase 2 games, and it would have been a maximum of 150. I think that was part of the pre agreed deal. It's part of the broadcasting games. I think Sky didn't take up the full allocation. There was a few games that Premier Sports could have scooped up, and I think they've done it with all the other teams apart from Celtic. So, well, the first thing, the actual price, 75,000. That shows what we're up against, against the other leagues. That's the reality. It's a horrible reality that's how much it is. The fact that a top of the table clash between 2 unbeaten domestic teams can only fetch for 75,000 to put on the TV. That's just, unfortunately, the kind of the pool that we're swimming in right now. That's our limitation. But I wish it was more. But again, if it was more, if it was not a fixed price, what would have been the price that would have been reasonable for the board to acquiesce to that request? Sorry, I even used that word. There was no reason to use that word, to agree to that request. So what
did you say? What did you say? I didn't catch it.
Acquiesce to that request. I was thinking about an Oasis song. Acquiesce, just to agree to the request. So say it was like 500 grand. Would Celtic have been far more obligated to go for it and to inconvenience the fans? So the reality is it was 75 grand and the board were right to knock it back. You think of going to the game on a Saturday at 3 o'clock, that's just the pinnacle, that's what you're used to, that's your bread and butter. To see that get messed around, it's quite annoying. And if you actually think about it, all the home games that we played at Parkhead so far this season, I think maybe only 1, possibly 2, have been a 3 o'clock Saturday game. They've been evening kickoffs, early Sunday and stuff like that. It's been annoying, but I understand it. But for a late notice thing to change it, unacceptable. And I heard that somebody said that about 6,000 of our support is travelling from Ireland, So the 3 o'clock kickoff is ideal for them. It gets that they can get up early enough to get the ferry over, and then they can get back. And again, they need to be quick, leaving the stadium to get back on their coach to get the ferry. And that's a rigid time schedule. If you're messing about with the 3 o'clock games and that, then that's disrespect to them. And if you think about the amount of money that they pay to get here, and the tradition that they've been doing that for years and years and years, and they would never think, a lot of the hardcore support would never think about giving up their season ticket. To be messed around like that is so disrespectful. And so I'm glad that Celtic have rebuffed the offer. But again, the cynical part of me is like, well, what if they offered $500,000? Would Celtic have changed? There is a price. There is a price that they would have caved in. So yeah, disrespectful, but I'm glad that Celtic have made that decision. What about yourself?
Yeah, like I think, as I said there at the start, it was totally disgraceful. One time, whatever, fixed fee. I mean, if you're talking about even championship games in England, it's probably 500 grand a game when you add the TV deal in and you kind of total that over a month or a season, and 75,000 quid for a top of the table class it's incredible, isn't it? It's absolutely insane that they would even ask Celtic to do that. Do you know what I mean? Someone put in the comments there, if Celtic made it a pay-per-view game like they do sometimes with the home games, they would make more doing that than selling it to Premier Sports. So I don't know. I don't know where they were coming from for that. But yeah, look, I think people are saying it's a win for the season ticket holders. Like you said, people travelling from my neck of the woods over every 2 weeks, that financial commitment. And even for myself, when I go over the games, you're talking, when you go over, you're spending £350, £400. Do you know what I mean? That's if you're staying overnight as well, and you're coming back and you're making a day of it. It's quite a hefty financial commitment, and fair play to the Celtic board and team for rejecting that deal, because it's just insane. But on Aberdeen, just briefly, Gavin, before we wrap up, it's been quite impressive. Jimmy Tilleen and Aberdeen, they're starting the season, has been, and all this stuff about them not been playing anybody and not playing anyone of real substance. I don't buy into that. We get that labelled at us all the time when we go and win runs and we win games left, right, and centre. Or you haven't played anyone yet, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. You can only beat what's in front of you. And at this precise moment, Aberdeen are 12 or 13 games unbeaten. They've won every single one of them, I believe, including their League Cup group stage thing and the league as well, which hats off. And I'm always a big advocate for Scottish clubs thinking outside of the box, and they brought Jimmy Tilleen from Elfsborg. He had a successful time there in Sweden. He's come in, he's implemented a style, they're sticking to the style, they're being rigid with it, and they've brought in players to complement that. They've spent £1 million, or close enough to £1 million on a winger from Finland who seems to be a really good player, and they're speculating to accumulate. And at this precise moment in time, they are basically our nearest challengers at the top of the league. Do you think they can sustain that, even if we hope and obviously want us Celtic to win, but even if we beat them, do you think they can sustain that challenge throughout the season, or do you think it just takes one defeat and that'll be it? That'll be the whole thing knackered, the coach still game?
Well, if you talk about resilience and mentality, you think about the last game where they were playing Hearts at Pittodrie, and it was a crazy game. They were down, and they managed to get a very, very late winner. I think it was in stoppage time. You think about how that galvanises a squad, because that happens to us. You know, it will happen to us away from home, at home, games when it's not quite working out for you, and the mentality to keep pushing yourself to keep going and going and going, and actually to get a winner in the stoppage minute it's incredible, and the fans were going crazy. You think about what that does for the confidence. So I think that the mentality is there, the resilience is there, but over the course of a season, they're going to have setbacks, they're going to have adversity. This unbeaten run will not be sustained. More than likely, we will beat them at Parkhead whenever we play them, but it's about how they bounce back from that. But from what I've seen so far from Aberdeen, I'm happy about it. I'm glad that there's a bit of competition. Obviously, for banter purposes, they're ahead of Rangers right now, which is brilliant to see. But they've played 7-1-7, as you said, and the cup competition as well, unbeaten. For goal difference, they're ahead of Rangers as well. They're for a positive 9 in goal difference, and they've actually got the top scorer in the league, a guy called Gay. I don't know his full name.
Papa Gay, Papa Gay or something. Papa fucking hell. I know who you're all about.
Aye, Big Papa. He's at the top with 5 goals. And the boy McGrath, he's second top for assists. He's got 4 assists on par with Nicholas Kuhn. So look, they're doing brilliantly, and I think it's good for the league. I wish we could see more instances of it. It actually kind of makes me reminisce a little bit back to, I don't know if you remember this as clearly as what I do, but do you remember Hearts under George Burley? It's not quite.
I do, yeah.
It's not quite the same, but Hearts were a different animal in that season. And I remember they came to Parkhead, and they were a real force with their signings. They had some real physical players, a bit of quality as well. And they were fearless under George Burley, had them playing and excited. Yeah.
Didn't they sign a Champions League winner around about that time? He play for Porto. Was this about the time they got the investment from Romanov? I'm pretty sure they signed a Champions League winner.
I don't know. You're not thinking of Nuno Capucho, are you? Who played for Rangers?
No. This was, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you there.
You could be right. I can't quite remember it. But Hearts, whenever they came to Parkhead, I think it was an evening game at Parkhead, and it was the first time we'd faced them. And I think it was similar, where they were unbeaten, or at least they hadn't lost any games. And there was a feeling in the air where they were reckoned to be. It's like any time when Hearts play Celtic, there's obviously that dislike for them, but there was this added kind of element where you knew that they were actually a decent team, and if we weren't on it, then we could get beaten by them. I think it ended up a 1-1 game at Parkhead, but it was exciting going into that game, that feeling, that added kind of ingredient that they were actually a team who had to be reckoned with. And although I think that Hearts team are superior to the Aberdeen that we're going to be facing, I think it's still exciting the fact that we're playing against Aberdeen, who have got their shit right so far this season, and it creates intrigue in the media. I think it's good for the game. But I think generally, if we're on it, if we're really, really on it, then we will beat them. But I hope Aberdeen are good enough to finish second. Will they? Who knows? It'll be interesting. But maybe Rangers have got the stronger depth and squad to outlast them to finish second. But it's just interesting. It's good for the game. It's healthy. What about you? Do you think it's a nail on that we will get the 3 points? Do you think that they'll fade away quite early after this game if they do get beat?
I think domestically, when we're on form, no one can touch us. There's no argument in my head about that. And while I expect it to be a tough game at Celtic Park, I think we should run out winners, to be honest. And this is my issue, what I was talking about. If we beat them, how do they take that? Do they take that with the right mentality? Do they fold? Do they lose their confidence after one defeat? Because sometimes, I mean, Rodgers has spoken about it before as well. Like, when Celtic go on these runs and they break records, sometimes it's good to get a defeat as well, because it releases you from that, having to do that week in, week out, and you can start again refreshed. But that's our mentality. That's how Celtic do it. We're not Aberdeen, so it depends. It's all on them and Jimmy Tolina and his squad. If how they deal with a defeat, how will they let it affect them? And I found it quite interesting reading today that Wolves are apparently keeping a close eye on Jimmy Tolina, because Gary O'Neill is under serious threat of the sack after the start he's made there. But again, that's probably just rumours. But again, he's getting noticed in the Premier League this early on with the job he's doing in the SPL with Aberdeen. But yeah, before we wrap up, Gav, I'll throw it over to you. Is there anything you want to finish on? Anything you want to chat about before we...
I was going to ask you one question. When will we see the best of Adam Idah this season?
Oh.
Difficult start. Difficult start with last season. The protracted drama with the transfer. But you see him now.
That's that player I was talking about, the heart signed. I think it's him. Hopefully.
Yeah,
but the Adam Idah thing's quite interesting. He had 3 goals in 2 games or something, and because he didn't score against Dortmund, and he didn't play particularly well in the league game there, people are doubting him again. I think Adam Idah he's putting a lot of pressure on himself, obviously, with his fee. I think he's feeling that a wee bit. He didn't have a good pre-season with Norwich, and there's all that to factor in. he's not getting full 90 minutes. He's getting maybe 30 minutes here and there. He's starting the game. He's getting took off after 60. So I think it'll be a build up over time. I think we're looking probably after Christmas, March, into the latter stage of the season when we'll see Adamita come alive and he'll repay that fee tenfold, in my opinion. I've no real issues or concerns around him just now. Don't get me wrong. If it's near the end of the season, he's only got 5 or 6 goals, I'll be like, what's going on here? What is actually happening to Ida? But at this precise moment, what is it, 3 goals or 4 goals he's on this season? So keep that going. Let's get a couple more in the next coming games and to build that confidence up. I think Ida, I don't know about you, Gav, but I think sometimes he's over trying, isn't he? I think he's snatching opportunities. He's trying to make things happen. And I think in the back of his mind, whether he likes to admit it or not, he's probably thinking, I've cost this club X, Y, and Z. I need to repay this as quick as I can. And sometimes that can weigh heavily on a player. But I believe he'll come out of it. I believe he'll get fitter. He'll get quicker. He'll get sharper. And we'll see the best out of him after Christmas.
I'm not overly concerned. I should be, but I'm not overly concerned. I think he will come good in the second half of the season when we might need him, because Kyoko's not going to play every single game domestically. I'm not overly concerned. I think it will come good. I think we just need to be patient. I don't think the fans are going overboard. No suggestion that they will, but I don't think that. I think any pressure is maybe coming from him. I don't think that there's really that much noise in the media either, which is quite satisfying to see. I think it will come good. I think there's definitely something there. The player that we saw last season is still there. Just give it a bit of time. And saying that, perversely, if he didn't turn out to be the player that we thought he was, this is one of the rare occasions when I wouldn't really care all that much about wasting 9 million on a player just because we are gluttonous right now with the money that we've got. Any other era of Celtic, I would be chapping in the guy's door asking where's the goals coming from. You're going to score tomorrow, big man. And this occasion, we're doing well domestically. It will come for Adamida, and I hope he manages to kind of fulfill his potential. So we'll see. We'll see. No pressure from this podcast on Adamida. But I think it is fair to say that it's not quite worked out for him, but optimistic. So apart from that, I don't really have anything further. You've been brilliant hosting tonight. I'm really looking forward to the Aberdeen game. Obviously, the small matter of a couple of, well, for me anyway, for people who.
Here's a question for you.
Yes.
Here's a question for you. Why do you think it is that there's such a look? It might just be me, but again, you can push me back on it if I'm wrong. Like a disconnect between Celtic supporters and supporting the national team. Obviously, Ross and Willie love Scotland and they're very patriotic, and so is Anthony Dunn as well. But why do you think there is maybe such people who lack interest in it? Do you think it's just because they're shite, or is it a multitude of things, or is there different reasons why? I just don't know. I just say there's a disconnect, and maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah, I think everyone has got their own right to feel as they feel, whether they want to be invested in the Scottish team. Maybe some people were brought up to support Scotland and they were taken to Scotland games. And I think it'd be natural, if that were the case, then to continue in that fashion, Me, I wasn't. I've never been to a Scotland game. I was never taken to a Scotland game by my dad, although my dad would take me to plenty of Celtic games, which I'm forever grateful for. Was never really brought up with the kind of passion for Scotland. But going back to the older generations, I think it's undeniable that Scottish that Celtic players who represented Scotland in decades gone past weren't treated as the same as other players were treated who turned out for Rangers. Some Celtic players who came on for Scotland were booed by the home crowd, and if you're a young man in the crowd who's a Celtic fan and you witness that, then that would turn you right off supporting Scotland, to completely understand. And if they tell the younger generation, their kids, about the treatment the Celtic players faced, then that will have a kind of butterfly effect. But I think everybody's got their own story, their own. If you want to support Scotland, then go for it. By all means, go for it. The ironic thing is a lot of Rangers supporters right now are being turned away from supporting the national team because they feel that they're not appreciated, that they feel that even their best player for a period, Ryan Jack, wasn't getting a game. Yeah, it wasn't good enough, but they took that as a slight against their club. So it's funny how that some Celtic fans are going back to support the national team, but a lot of Rangers fans have been turned off from it. It's interesting. Everybody's got their own story. For me, it's just there's no animosity. There's no bitterness about what happened for past generations. I think that Celtic fans or Celtic players are treated just the same, equally with everybody else. I don't think there's any sectarianism in terms of selecting a Celtic player. I think it's about meritocracy right now, which is the way that it should be. I just don't have that passion. Like we were talking about it on the WhatsApp chat, and you were saying about your lack of passion for Ireland or for the north of Ireland, and it's just because, in your experience, they weren't an exciting team. Even like the Jack Charlton team of Ireland back in the early 90s, like kind of hoof it up the park, and head it down, win the second ball and score. And they had some brilliant occasions, but it wasn't the greatest football. Scotland have never been an entertaining team under like Craig Brown. Like that was my kind of generation, the first manager for me, Craig Brown, and then a lot of other people followed him. Like the Betty Votes time, that was chronic. But yeah, nothing against Scotland. It's just lack of. I've never been brought up with it, so that's one thing. Another thing is it's just they've never been entertaining for me. So I guess that's my long-winded answer.
To be fair, that's pretty much my answer earlier on in the podcast group chat when Donny was asking me why I don't really have an affinity to the north or south in terms of the national football teams. Just uninspiring dog shit. It doesn't interest me in the slightest. Don't get me wrong. As I said, if the Republic of Ireland are playing England or whatever, I'll have a beer and watch it, but I don't really care if they win or lose. It's just one of them things. I mean, Strange love the Doctor. I watch Scotland and I like to see them win. It cheers everyone up a little. However, since the referendum and the failure of the English to recognise democratic right of the Scots, I'm like, fuck it. They like to have their fingers in everyone's pies, so to speak. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this podcast. Quite a short one for a Friday, Gav, but have you enjoyed it?
I really, really have. I wasn't actually feeling too well before the podcast started, but I told you that football is the best tonic if you're not feeling well. It flew in, and I only had the one beer. I didn't feel like drinking red wine tonight. I've actually got 2 more beers in a bag right next to me. I might go into my second and go down and see what's on the TV. I started watching Deadwood recently. I don't know if you've seen it.
What's Deadwood?
It's a Western series. I've seen it before, but I'm the type of guy who would just go back to something if I really, really like it. It's really, really entertaining. There's maybe like two seasons, maybe 3. But watch it, give it a wee try. Deadwood, brilliant. Aye, what about you? Any plans for this evening? After this,
mate, straight after this, mate, I'm going to be honest, I'm going into bed because I've been getting up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and I need some sleep because I'm absolutely busted. But I'll stick on it. What is it? I'll stick on a film. Like, what are you going to say?
Can I tell you something funny? So see, Alistair Johnson. I don't know if anybody had realised, but he got engaged recently. Alistair Johnson proposed to his long-term girlfriend, and the picture of him getting down on one knee and proposing was outside. It was in Pollock Park, which is in the south side of Glasgow. The funny thing is, that's exactly where I proposed to my missus about two years ago. We're actually coming up for our anniversary next month. But that's where I proposed to Jennifer. So it's funny. It's funny that Alistair Johnson thought the same thing. I just found that quite entertaining. Yeah.
That's nice. And your 2-year anniversary coming up, yeah?
2-year anniversary coming up, aye. We'll try and find a babysitter. Maybe go out for a wee meal somewhere. Aye.
Sounds nice, man. Hope you enjoy that. But yeah, as I said to everyone at the start as well, we're still running on a restricted schedule, so we'll be back at some point next week. Obviously, building up to the top of the table clash against Aberdeen. We'll have some laughs of that, probably a few beers as well next week at some point. We'll let you know when we will be back on. But until then, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.